had a conversation with Arizona's top economist, Jim Rounds, to talk about Peoria and its future economic development capability.
You previously talked about, and we had a great conversation about how a balanced budget is an economic development tool as well. You have to balance a budget and be very careful when the economy is slowing, and then when it's expanding, you have to take advantage of those opportunities. Can you talk about your philosophy as it pertains to proper budget management and what you would like to accomplish over the business cycle?
So I think that my vision of the city is really focusing on how we actually drive the tax dollars that are coming back into our city. How are we driving the revenue? Not increasing taxes, but how are we actually driving the economy? If we sit and wait and just let it take over us, we're going to be sitting in the same spot 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 12 years from now, and so on and so forth. The mentality that we should have, again, my opinion, but that we should have, is that we need to focus on how we're not only looking at our long-term revenue income, but also what are we reinvesting in? And I think that that's one of the most important things. You know, right now we spend less than 1% of our budget focused on economic development, and that's not enough, right? You don't get from point A to point B or point A to point Z, without actually focusing on what your future actually is. And it's not to say that economic development is everything in the city. That's not the point. The point is you can't provide city services and you can't provide a high level of services without actually focusing on what your future is. And I think that's just a basic foundational business principle. If you're not thinking about what your future is now, today as a business, you will perish later on. It doesn't mean that our city will perish, but it does mean that we will actually can completely focus on squandering our opportunities and actually just completely just building debt. Right now, we focus on bonds, right? So when we want to do something, we just automatically go to bonds instead of driving revenue. And to me, a bond is a credit card, right? All you're doing is borrowing money, be it at a low interest rate, you're still borrowing money. And we're not focusing on how we're actually going to drive revenue to where we can actually pay for a lot of the things that we have. I think that you could put it into categories. There's nice to haves, there's needs that you have to have, and there's nice to haves. Nice to haves focus on when I have the cash to do that, then I'm going to do that. But I have to focus on my foundational aspects of what the city's needs are. Things like reducing pensions, focusing on reducing debt load that we can continue to add up. We look at it and we're like, well, we're amortizing it over a 20-year period. Yeah, but when we're paying, $6, $7, $8, $9 million a year in interest, when that $7 or $8 million, $9 million in interest that on a yearly basis could be flowing back into city services, if you reduce your debt faster. And I think that's really important. It's important to have that principle and use that as a foundational principle to drive that vision forward. To learn more about the campaign, please visit our website at beckformayor.com.